Hey Maniacs, welcome back to another Designer Studio episode. We got Landon joining us for kind of a special episode here actually, because not only do we have 3 different variants of the minifigure of the month to take a look at, but we also have the Arvin Ranger, who comes out on Friday, he's not available yet, and the Military MP, which released last Friday. So quite a few figures to go over. Let's dive right in. You want to start off with the Way Marines?
Yeah, and just going back to all the figures, there's still a few more coming out, so this is not it. This is one of the craziest months that I think I've undertaken in a while. So it's so exciting. Yeah, the Way Marines. I'm one of my kind of favorite loadouts here during the Vietnam War. Kind of an interesting smattering of gear on these minifigures. The first thing that would stand out would be that the USN, the United States Navy rain gear, and that's represented here in that dark gray color. And so I guess traditionally with our minifigures that we release every month, when we do the different flesh tones, historically I've just kind of kept the uniforms the exact same. Mm-hmm. This time we're trying a little bit, we have a completely unique variance between the different flesh tones. And so, I mean, that was a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah, I can imagine.
For myself and for print. So we'll see.
Done some extra design work.
We'll see if we do it the exact same next time. We'll see. This is just a fun project, anyways. So there's a little bit of different variance between all 3 of these minifigures, as you can see here. Those gray uniforms, you'd see them, I guess, since they're deployed closely with the Navy, obviously, they would have access to that kind of gear. So they'll wear it mixed with their standard issue fatigues, stuff like that.
Kind of whatever gear showed up, right? I mean, you're using whatever you have. Yeah.
So what else? Other things that are unique to the Marines of this era would be, I believe it's the M55 vest. Don't quote me on that. But that is specific to the Marines, and you can tell the difference. There's a little bit of this piping that goes across one of the shoulders. And I believe that's to hold kind of maybe your rifle sling in place.
Sure.
So you can always spot that's a Marine right there by seeing that little piping on that.
Giveaway gear, okay.
That vest also has an integrated pistol belt. It doesn't appear that they really used it a whole lot to hook in the different ammo pouches, but it was designed to be able to do that. So normally they would just have a separate standalone pistol belt, which I have shown across here. Let's see. This guy here in the middle, he has so the Marines also had special ammo pouches, kind of really boxy looking ammo pouches that you'd see specific to the Marines of the era. And I have that represented here. Of course, this guy's got a bandolier going across it, M16 bandolier. Sometimes you see him with up to maybe 3,
gotta load up.
Maybe 4 bandoliers, kind of just completely covered with ammunition. Sometimes you saw that. Here I just have 1 going across as a minifigure. Stuff tends to fill up quick on minifigure artwork, because these guys are, even though they're really, really, really wide.
Yeah,
if you've noticed, minifigures are incredibly wide. But since you're holding it in your hand, you're really working with a lot smaller of a scale than what you kind of think. So I have to sort of exaggerate the sizes on some things, omit some things. It's almost more about what you don't include in your artwork than what you do, because if you try to include every single little detail, it all kind of ends up getting
too busy,
muddled. Yeah, so that's a constant balancing act. Sometimes it's more successful than others, but this is just no exception here. I'm choosing what gear to include, what not to include.
Well, and you kind of look at your research, your historical images, and you go, what pops? What do I see that right away I'm kind of like, ooh, that's cool, that's awesome. Then you use that, like you've said in the past, it's a caricature. You transfer it over to the minifig, and I think that it's more pleasing visually to have a couple of cool things you can point to than just to look at something and be like, what's going on there? There's 13 layers.
I could take a photograph and print it on the minifigure, but that wouldn't be cool. What else is on these minifigures? They got the 3-cell grenade pouch on the hanging down from the hip there, and that's on I think 2 of these guys. But that you can just right hanging down the side of your leg, and it's tied against around your knee kind of thing.
Sure.
Just to keep it from bouncing around when you're running. So that's a cool, interesting pouch that I noticed on those Marines. This guy's got dual canteens, extra water.
Don't drink the water in Vietnam. At least the river water.
Yeah, right. Other details would I have combat knives. I have this guy is decked out with the 30 cal bandoliers. So that's a really super intimidating look there. Other, I guess, what else? Combat boots, color tinting going on across these guys. So obviously we have this dark bluish gray rain gear, and that's pretty. It's actually a pretty close match to what it would have been in real life. Maybe a hint more olive on some of them. I was trying to find the difference. It appeared that there might have been two different raincoats. I wasn't 100% positive of that, but in some, what's nice about the Marines is that, from what I've heard, is that they had to buy their own film and camera equipment. Compared to the Army. The Army was issued film. I was talking with Dan about this. The Army was issued with film, which was black and white, but the Marines, either they were issued color film or they had to get their own film, so you see a lot more color photography with the photographers attached to the Marines. So it's kind of interesting. You're able to see better color pictures. I guess this is what kind of cued me off to, they're wearing a gray jacket sometimes and gray pants sometimes. Like, what is that? I didn't really know what it was when I was going through these images, and then I realized, this is that Navy rain gear.
Interesting.
But along with that is just the standard fatigues that they would have been wearing as well, kind of in combination, mixed in with that. So I have this guy's wearing the regular olive drab trousers, and this guy's wearing the regular olive drab jacket, which I have done a little bit of color shifting to get to that correct color.
Sure.
And then maybe last note would be the helmet. So that you might be at first looking at that as like, well, that's not the standard Mitchell pattern helmet. And totally right. This is actually dates back to World War II. They had these mosquito net helmet covers, and that's sort of in that frog skin pattern. They never really used it with the full face down, from what I can really tell.
Sure.
They would just use it as the helmet cover, but that is that frog skin World War II pattern that you'd see specifically with these Marines. Not as common as the Mitchell pattern, but I figured this would be a good opportunity to throw that frog skin mosquito net helmet cover into the mix.
Yeah, well, and they look good.
Yeah. So and then you can make sure to pick up some of the M16, the Bloop gun. That would go perfectly with some of these guys.
Yeah, both of those perfect calibers are in stock right now on brickmania.com, so make sure to check those out. And then remember, like we were saying with the email, social media this morning, the third variant, that reddish brown flesh, his initial release was this morning as well. So while supplies last, we hope on Monday we'll be able to bring back all three variants and get them back in action. So
yeah, it's cool. The variants have different, slightly different helmet covers. We have the playing card tucked into that foliage band. But you see playing cards all over the place, and I chose to we opted to have a playing card here in the helmet band. So
yeah, that's really, really cool. I think that's an interesting bit of history.
Sometimes you see like Joker, like he's Joker.
Right. Well, and they've got some iconic images that we've seen before of that, that the different cards tucked in there. But at the same time, I just kind of just thought of something that looked cool.
Yeah, the Ace of Spades, it's the death card. Whether or not the Vietnamese actually thought that was superstitious, any different than we would have associated.
But that was the thought, is psychological warfare.
Yeah, so you see playing cards pop up a ton in Vietnamese or Vietnam battlefields. This is sort of, one, they're playing with them in real life. They're probably actual cards, but specifically the Ace of Spades would be that death card, right? So they'd leave it around during battles, on fallen soldiers. So it's just.
I didn't really understand that it was. They're like, no, they're superstitious enemy. We're going to use that to our advantage.
I don't think they actually were superstitious.
Right, sure, but at the same time, we dropped cards all over the place and just spread them out all over the jungle. So.
Yeah, it's a Bicycle card company. They actually did a special run of just the Ace of Spades card, like just huge quantities of it to give to the soldiers. I think the biggest function, I think, was probably just a morale booster.
Right.
It's like kind of fostering that like mythos within the unit. And so I think that was kind of the bigger function, but that also would be really creepy from like an enemy perspective. Like, why are they leaving these?
Seriously, what does this mean?
It's really weird. I'm superstitious now. That's weird.
This has made me superstitious.
Yeah. But ton of fun to research this, make the artwork for, and I think these turned out pretty freaking phenomenal. So.
Yep, I think we'll have another modern Navy SEAL situation on our hand here. We'll be doing everything we can to keep these in stock, but ultimately the demand is probably going to be a little higher than our production can meet. So get them while they last, and get them early and often. That'll help you boost your collection. Once again, those mock contests are still running too, so these guys would look perfect there. Let's move on to the MP,
Sure.
because he's actually available, and then we'll end with the Arvin Ranger because he debuts on Friday.
Right on. So yeah, this would be an excellent example of that color shifting that I've been dialing in with the printers over the past while, and I'm loving how we can pretty much get the exact color that we want to represent that uniform of the era. This whole month we're going to be seeing quite a bit of color shifting going on. Even within the minifigures that I'm making for the kits, and I'm opting to kind of go back and forth between dark bluish gray as the substrate, the base color of the minifigure, and dark tan. So when I use dark bluish gray, like right here, it ends up kind of like a newer uniform look to it. So it hasn't been out in the sun quite as much. And when I'm using the dark tan, it's more of like a faded kind of uniform.
In country for a little while. Okay,
so,
cool.
But in real life, you would see, even in brand new olive drab equipment, you see a huge range of color, just different batches of dye, different manufacturers, and this has just been true forever. You know, like you'll always see a really big variance in coloration, even amongst the exact same run, you know.
Right.
Something dyed at the beginning of a batch of dye compared to something dyed at the end. Same ream of fabric, you're gonna have two different shades, sometimes three sometimes. You know, sometimes they'll actually cut it. There's a whole whatever.
Well, and I think Hollywood changes a lot of that too, because you look at costumes, and costumes, you know, can be uniformly the same color across the board. Everyone looks like, you know, your standard Vietnam grunt that you would think of in that olive drab, but at the same time, when you bring your research out of the studio and into real life, that's not necessarily how it always looked. Like we said before, they're using their, you know, whatever they can get their hands on. So that is kind of cool that you can work with those two different colors, and then depending on the, you know, the feel you want for the figure, the look, you know, according with the face, whatever. Has he been in for a while? Did he just get off the plane?
Sure.
That's some cool depth. Man.
Yeah,
that's really neat.
It's fun. It's fun pushing into that. And I guess initially it's like we have had trouble in the past getting a hold of Lego's olive color. So that's kind of what prompted this. Like, man, we're running into a harder and harder, like the supplies are dwindling. The quantities just aren't out there anymore. Like we were getting it from like Chima sets, and just the quantities aren't out there anymore like they used to be. So that kind of prompted this. Like, let's see if we can find some alternatives. And it ended up like, you know, I really love the potential with this color shifting stuff.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing here isn't just straight blasting green ink on there.
Right.
I'm actually working with a minimal amount of ink as possible, and what's showing through there is its majority is the Lego showing through that. It's a tint. It's not actually like ink blasted covering it all up. So working with the Lego, it's a nice softer color than just trying to print over it. MP, yeah, I'll just go over this guy quick here. He's got that arm brassard with the MP there, and that's part of the. Do you remember the number of the 18th MP? You said it that last time.
Oh, when we were looking,
I forget. But you were
the 81st or something like that. I know what you're talking. The ones that were in charge of the operations for the
Yeah.
entire. So there were divisions of military police, but there was one that was in charge of everything, and he was modeled after that guy. That patch is accurate.
Yeah.
It says in the product description. I just wrote it a while ago.
There you go. Well, right, and that's the thing. We're doing this episode. We have to wait till we actually get the printed figures. So I'm like. This was like, I've been done with it for several weeks, so I had to like, well, what did I do again?
Right, yeah.
One, I have trouble remembering the numbers of the different equipment. Now I have to go back and like...
Unit numbers and everything, yeah, I know, that's tough. But like I said, look it up on the product page, and you'll know exactly where it's from there. So.
Yes. He's got that little billy club there, keeping people in line with that. Sunglasses to get that intimidating look. MP on the helmet, that's probably more common maybe earlier in the war. The further into Vietnam you probably didn't see them with that painted on their actual pot helmet. On the liner, however, you would see that painted.
Okay.
So they had like a black helmet liner, really shiny. But when they go out closer to combat areas, they're going to be just wearing a regular OD, or a regular like Mitchell pattern cover pot helmet. But I thought this was a cool opportunity.
Yeah, if you get a Lego MP, you want him. I mean, he's kind of one of those things where if you got him in their mock, you want people to identify the difference between those two. So I think that was a good call.
Yeah. Pistol holster on the side, and then special ammo pouches that also appear to be MP specific. So in that black leather. Again, they're kind of going for that, you know, he's a police, you know. Oh, and a little whistle on the front, little whistle. Yeah, that's the MP.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, then we can move on to the Arvin Ranger, who's got the most flamboyant helmet I've ever seen on a minifig.
These guys were ridiculous. super effective, and you know they suffered some pretty heavy casualties, but they weren't getting the same kind of like air support that we were getting.
Sure.
Some really vicious fighters, intense fighters, and kind of at the end of the war when we had to withdraw, you know, a lot of their fates kind of just unknown. Probably a lot of them fled the country, but who knows? So it's kind of like some sad history there, but. I guess I appreciate the chance to kind of recreate this guy in this Lego form.
And an important one to include in the Vietnam Bricks lineup. Yeah, I would agree.
Right. Helmets, I think they probably were superstitious about that panther, you know, the jungle cat on the front of that helmet there. And then this really intense coloration, you know, I think that actually would strike fear into the enemies they're encountering these guys.
It's an intimidating looking figure. I can imagine in real life it would be even more interesting.
And so then the uniform, we got the insignia on the side of the arm, and you see them in a couple different camouflage patterns. Tiger stripe, that being locally made, they would have had some of their uniforms in that. You'll see there's like an in-country made version of frog skin, very similar to this, that you'd also see them wearing. I think they call that one leopard.
Cool.
It's similar to the World War II U.S. frog skin pattern.
Okay.
And then they had their own version of ERDL, or the precursor to woodland. Mm-hmm. So these guys had lots of cool camouflage patterns, because I think that's like, I guess a lot of those fabrics are made there in country, so they had a lot of access to that. Another really interesting feature were those boots, and so Vietnam being previously occupied by France, they had a lot of French equipment, and these boots, from what I could tell, appeared to be like French, or at least like design, like inspired by design. Like the design was the same as these French boots.
Okay.
So they're canvas boots, rubber sole. I guess the closest equivalent that you could buy right now would be like Palladium. Those, if you're familiar with those boots.
Yeah.
Like Israeli special forces use those kind of boots. Very similar. So these are canvas jungle combat boots. And in a lot of ways, they're kind of the precursor to like the jungle boots that the soldiers, our soldiers will be wearing. There's some influences that you can see there. Ours have more like leather protection on the toes and heel and stuff. But these have like some drainage eyelets on the side. What else is on this guy? Old school U.S. ammo pouches. You would see them. You know, sometimes they're using World War II U.S. gear as well.
Once again, whatever they can get their hands on.
Yeah, anything. Yeah, it's kind of like that Marine situation. Only it's like even further hand-me-down compared to that.
Literally, whatever you can get. Your hands
so
on.
you'd see any weapon would go with these guys. So scrappy fighters, man.
Incredibly photogenic minifig too, just from the standpoint of that helmet mixed with that really, really stark camo.
Totally.
Like, what a fun one to just have close-up pictures of or whatever. And kind of like we were saying, all of these are, we want to be able to put the tools in your hand to make awesome mocks, especially during these months, so you can pick up everything that you want, and that is definitely a portion that needs to be well represented. And like you said, some sad history, but one that's essential to the story of it all.
I don't think there's a better way to really learn about history than trying to recreate something in Lego and build a Lego mock or something.
No, I agree.
I've learned so much just by trying to recreate these minifigures, and I hope that you guys are learning along with me. Or if you know this stuff already, leave some comments on how I'm wrong.
I mean, we're cranking these out, sometimes multiple of them in a week. It's pretty tough to remember the names of absolutely everything, but that doesn't mean that we don't want people to be able to know it. So if you're an expert, drop a comment, let us know, and that's cool. We always welcome that kind of feedback, so that's sweet. Well, Landon, I think that you've certainly kicked off the month in style. We're looking forward to seeing what we have in stores. Pay attention to social media, etc., and we'll release the rest of them and let you know what is coming. Again, the Arvin Ranger does not come out till Friday, so I hope there's not comments like, wait a minute, I can't get the Arvin Ranger right now. Friday. Remember that MP, and then the other Hue Marine is available right now. So thanks for sitting down with me, man. This was cool.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yep. We will see you next time.